Ma, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave. These vehicles start at $80,000, and frankly, I don't think this is the right place for someone like you. The words echoed through Prestige Motors, Atlanta's most exclusive luxury car dealership, as Bob Robinson, white man, stared down Ruth Cardiff, a well-dressed black woman in her 40s. His eyes swept dismissively over his casual Friday attire, dark jeans and a simple button-down shirt. The entire showroom fell silent. Other customers stopped their conversations, sensing the electric tension filling the air. A young sales associate named Liam shifted uncomfortably behind the counter, clearly wanting to intervene, but afraid to challenge his manager. Ruth's jaw tightened, but her voice remained dangerously calm. Someone like me. And what exactly does that mean, Mr. Robinson? As she read the name tag on his blazer, something extraordinary flickered across his face. Recognition mixed with complete disbelief. Bob stepped closer, his voice dripping with venom. Look, we both know what I mean. Why don't you try the Honda dealership down the street? They have some nice used cars that might be more in your budget. Her smile was as cold as winter. Ruth stared at him for a long moment, then pulled out his phone. When she spoke, there was something in her voice that should have terrified Bob Robinson. You know what, Ruth? You're absolutely right. I think it's time I made some calls. What Bob didn't know was about destroying everything he thought he knew about power, money, and the woman standing in front of him. Hit that subscribe button, because what happens next will leave you speechless. Have you ever witnessed discrimination like this? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Because Ruth's next move is going to shock everyone in that dealership. But to understand the devastating irony of what was happening at Prestige Motors, we need to go back to where Ruth Cardiff's incredible journey began. This wasn't just any woman being humiliated. This was someone who had overcome odds that would have crushed most people. Ruth Cardiff was born in Birmingham, Alabama, to Dorothy Cardiff, a single mother who cleaned office buildings at night just to keep food on their table. Picture a woman working her fingers to the bone, coming home at dawn with aching knees and calloused hands, all so her daughter could have a chance at something better. Dorothy had worked not one, not two, but 3 jobs to put Ruth through college. She cleaned offices at night, worked at a grocery store during the day, and did laundry for neighbors on weekends. Despite being exhausted beyond imagination, she never missed a single parent-teacher conference. Never missed a school play. Never let Ruth feel like she was anything less than her entire world. The words she repeated to her daughter would become his life philosophy. Baby, you can't control how people see you, but you can control who you become. Those words carried the weight of generations of struggle, the pain of a mother who knew her brilliant daughter would face rejection simply because of the color of his skin. And Dorothy was right. At Morehouse College, while her classmates were partying and enjoying typical college life, Ruth spent her nights hunched over financial models and market analysis. Her professors were amazed by her analytical mind and her ability to spot opportunities that C.Ed investors missed. She graduated summa cum laude with a degree in business and finance, but the real world had a harsh wake-up call waiting. Ruth started as an entry-level analyst at a small investment firm in Atlanta, and the discrimination hit him like a sledgehammer. She worked 18-hour days, arriving before his white colleagues and leaving long after they went home. She watched as promotion after promotion went to less qualified candidates who happened to look different than him. But here's what made Ruth extraordinary. Instead of letting bitterness consume her like it would most people, she channeled every ounce of frustration into building something greater. At just 28 years old, she founded Cardiff Capital, a private equity firm with a simple but brilliant strategy. Find struggling companies with potential, provide them with capital and expertise, and help them thrive. The sacrifice paid off in ways that would have made her mother weep with pride. 10 years later, Cardiff Capital managed over $200 million in assets. Ruth had become one of the most successful black investors in the Southeast, though she deliberately stayed behind the scenes. She believed in letting her results speak louder than her presence. But here's the heartbreaking irony that would soon explode at Prestige Motors. Ruth's success had come partly through her ability to remain invisible. Many companies he invested in never knew their benefactor's race, communicating only through lawyers and financial intermediaries. This anonymity had protected him from prejudice, but it was about to create the most shocking confrontation of her life. 3 months before that fateful day, Bob Robbins' daughter had been on the verge of losing everything. Prestige Motors, the dealership she'd inherited from her late father, was drowning in debt. Her world was crumbling as suppliers demanded payment up front, banks threatened to call in loans, and her best employees were abandoning ship. Bob had always believed that luxury meant exclusivity, and to him, exclusivity meant keeping out what he considered undesirable people. It was a philosophy his father had drilled into him, and he wore it like a badge of honor, never realizing it was actually destroying his business. Then, her miracle arrived in the form of Sam Phillip, a polished lawyer representing Cardiff Capital. The offer seemed too good to be true. A substantial investment to restructure her debt and modernize operations. The terms were incredibly generous, almost suspiciously so. Phillip explained that Cardiff Capital preferred complete anonymity. Our client values discretion. They believe the best investments are those where ego doesn't interfere with business. Bob was so desperate he didn't question why anyone would be so generous to a failing business. The money arrived exactly as promised, transforming Prestige Motors from the brink of bankruptcy to profitability almost overnight. For the first time in years, Bob could breathe easy. He had no idea he was being watched, evaluated, and that every discriminatory act was being documented. Because Ruth Cardiff hadn't chosen his dealership for financial reasons. She'd done her research and discovered Bob's reputation for turning away minority customers. Multiple complaints had been filed with the Better Business Bureau from qualified buyers who'd been treated exactly like Ruth was being treated right now. Hit that subscribe button because you're about to witness one of the most satisfying moments of justice ever captured. What would you do if you discovered the person discriminating against you was completely dependent on your success? Let me know in the comments, because what Ruth does next will leave Bob Robinson wishing she'd never been born. Back in that showroom, the tension had become suffocating. Bob's vicious words hung in the air like poison, and everyone present could feel that they were witnessing something that would change lives forever. Phones were already out, recording every cruel word that fell from Bob's lips. Liam, the young black sales associate who had been silently enduring Bob's racism for months, finally reached his breaking point. His voice trembled as he found courage he didn't know he had. "Mr. Robinson, maybe we should." Bob's response was swift and brutal. "Liam, get back to work. This doesn't concern you." He didn't even look at him, his eyes still locked on Ruth with pure disdain. But something extraordinary happened. Liam didn't retreat this time. He had watched Bob humiliate customer after customer who looked like him, had felt his soul die a little each time, and something about Ruth's dignified composure gave him strength he'd never felt before. "Actually, it does concern me. This woman hasn't done anything wrong." Bob's face turned crimson with rage. The audacity of his employee, challenging his authority in front of customers, sent him over the edge. "Don't you dare question my judgment. I know exactly what type of person we're dealing with here." Meanwhile, Ruth's phone was buzzing relentlessly with incoming messages. Each vibration represented pieces of a plan falling into place, but his calm exterior gave nothing away. Inside, a storm was building, not just from this moment, but from every slight, every passed-over promotion, every time someone had looked at her and seen less than what she was. The difference was, this time she had the power to do something about it. "Type of person?" Ruth repeated, her voice so quiet it was terrifying. "Please, enlighten everyone here about what type of person you think I am." The showroom had become a tomb. Harold and Margaret Peterson, the well-dressed elderly white couple near the Bentley display, exchanged horrified glances. They had come to buy a car, and instead found themselves witnessing something that made their stomachs turn. A young Hispanic family with their teenage daughter moved closer, their daughter's eyes wide with shock at the hatred she was witnessing. Bob, drunk on what he believed was his own power, made the decision that would destroy his life. He decided to spell out exactly what he thought of Ruth Cardiff. Fine, you want me to spell it out? People like you come in here wasting our time, taking up space, and making our real customers uncomfortable. This is a place for serious buyers, not for people looking to take selfies with cars they could never afford. Each word hit Ruth like a physical assault. Every syllable carried the weight of centuries of prejudice, the echo of every door slammed in her face, every opportunity stolen because of the color of his skin. But instead of breaking her, each word only strengthened her resolve. Her phone continued buzzing. Her team was in motion. "I see," Ruth said with devastating calm. "And you're certain about your assessment of me?" Bob's smile was pure venom as he delivered what he thought was his killing blow. Absolutely certain. He had no idea he had just signed his own death warrant. 20 minutes later, the rumble of engines outside made everyone in the showroom turn toward the windows. 3 black SUVs pulled up with military precision, their occupants emerging like a small army of suited professionals. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a coordinated operation. Sam Phillip, the lawyer who had saved Bob's business just months before, led the procession. Behind him walked Kathy Milton, Ruth's chief financial officer, her briefcase containing documents that would shatter Bob's world. Additional lawyers, a forensic accountant, and a business valuations expert followed, like soldiers preparing for battle. Bob watched through the floor-to-ceiling windows, his confidence evaporating as dread crept up his spine. "What's going on out there?" he whispered, but his question was about to be answered in the most devastating way possible. Ruth straightened her shoulders as her team entered. The transformation was subtle but unmistakable. The quiet victim became the commanding general, and everyone in that showroom felt the shift in power. Sam Phillip's voice cut through the silence like a sword. "Mr. Robinson, I believe you've met my client, Ruth Cardiff." The name hit Bob like a lightning bolt. Cardiff Capital. The anonymous savior who had rescued his failing business. His eyes darted between the lawyer and Ruth, his mind desperately trying to reject what was becoming undeniably clear. That's not possible," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Kathy Milton opened her briefcase with the precision of a prosecutor presenting evidence. "Mr. Robinson, I'm Kathy Milton, CFO of Cardiff Capital. These documents detail every investment my company has made in Prestige Motors over the past 3 months. The total amount is $2.4 million. The showroom exploded in murmurs and gasps. Liam looked between Ruth and Bob, understanding dawning on his face like sunrise. The elderly couple moved closer, their earlier discomfort replaced by fascination at witnessing justice unfold in real time. Bob's legs gave out and he had to grab a desk for support. The woman he had just humiliated, the woman he had tried to throw out like garbage, was the person who had saved his from bankruptcy. The irony was so complete, so perfectly devastating that his mind could barely process it. "Miss Cardiff," he stammered, his voice breaking, "I had no idea. I mean, we've never met in person." Ruth's expression remained neutral, but her eyes held the accumulated pain of every black person who had ever been judged by their appearance rather than their character. "No, Mr. Robinson, we haven't met, but you've certainly formed some strong opinions about me based on my appearance. Make sure you subscribe right now, because what happens next will be the most satisfying moment of justice you've ever witnessed. Have you ever wanted to see someone get exactly what they deserve for their prejudice? Drop a comment below, because Bob Robinson is about to learn that karma doesn't just knock. Sometimes it kicks down the door. Kathy Milton continued her methodical destruction of Bob's world, laying out document after document on the nearby desk as customers and staff gathered around like witnesses to an execution. The numbers she revealed were absolutely staggering, each one driving a deeper knife into Ruth's heart. In addition to the initial $2.4 million investment, Kathy's voice was clinical, precise, devastating. Cardiff Capital has guaranteed your major supplier contracts, Ally-backed your bank loans, and provided the credit line that allowed you to acquire your premium inventory. Each revelation hit Bob like a sledgehammer to the chest. Every gleaming Mercedes in his showroom, every BMW that sparkled under the lights, every Audi that represented his success, All of it existed because of the generosity of the woman he had just called worthless. The woman he had treated like dirt beneath his shoes had been his guardian angel, and he had spat in her face. But Kathy Milton wasn't finished destroying Bob's soul. Sam Phillips stepped forward with another stack of documents, his voice carrying the weight of moral judgment. "Mr. Robinson, our due diligence included a review of customer complaints filed against your dealership. We have documented 17 separate incidents over the past 2 years where minority customers reported discriminatory treatment." Liam, the young sales associate, nodded with tears in his eyes. He had witnessed every single one of those incidents, had felt his heart break each time he watched Bob humiliate someone who looked like him, and had always felt powerless to stop the cruelty. Philip's voice grew harder, more damning. "Furthermore, our investigation revealed that your dealership's discriminatory practices have cost you an estimated $600,000 in lost sales over the past 18 months. Qualified buyers with excellent credit were turned away based solely on racial profiling." Bob's entire business philosophy was crumbling to dust before his eyes. He had believed that keeping out certain people would make his business more exclusive, more profitable. But the cold, hard numbers proved he had been destroying his own success with his hatred. Harold Peterson, the elderly white gentleman who had been shopping with his wife, stepped forward with the dignity of a man who had lived through the civil rights era. His voice carried decades of moral authority. "Young lady, my wife and I have been customers here for 15 years. If this is how you treat people, you won't be seeing our business anymore." Their departure was like the first domino falling. The Hispanic family, who had been seriously considering a purchase for their daughter's graduation, walked out shaking their heads in disgust. Other customers began making excuses and leaving, creating a cascade of lost business that Bob could only watch in horror. Ruth observed this exodus with no joy, no satisfaction, only profound sadness. She had hoped that revealing the truth might create a moment of understanding, a chance for Bob to see the error of his ways. But his response told her everything she needed to know. He was more concerned about losing money than about the human lives he had damaged. The final phase of Ruth's response came with surgical precision. Kathy Milton placed the last set of documents on the desk, withdrawal papers that would immediately terminate Cardiff Capital's investment and call in every single loan. Ruth's voice filled the silent showroom like the voice of destiny itself. Effective immediately, Cardiff Capital is withdrawing its investment from Prestige Motors. All loans are being called, all credit guarantees are being revoked, and all supplier relationships backed by our company are being terminated. Bob collapsed into a chair as the full magnitude of his destruction hit him like a tsunami. Without Cardiff Capital's backing, his dealership would return to bankruptcy within days. The suppliers would cut off deliveries, the bank would seize every asset, and his employees would lose their jobs because of his hatred. "Please," he whispered, his voice breaking like a child's, all his earlier arrogance replaced by desperate, pathetic pleading. "I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. I can change. I can do better." Ruth looked down at him with more pity than anger, like a parent disappointed in a child who should have known better. "Mr. Robinson, this isn't about punishment. This is about consequences. You didn't just discriminate against me today. You revealed a pattern of behavior that has harmed countless people and damaged your own business." Then Ruth did something that revealed the true measure of her character. She turned to Liam, who had been watching the proceedings with tears of gratitude streaming down his face. "Liam, I've been impressed by your integrity today. If you're interested in continuing your career in automotive sales, Cardiff Capital is investing in a new dealership across town. We could use someone with your principles." Liam's face exploded with joy and hope, emotions he hadn't felt in years of working under Bob's cruel management. "Yes, Ma? Absolutely." The transformation was swift and complete. Within hours, word of Bob's racist meltdown had spread across social media like wildfire. Local news stations picked up the story, and civil rights organizations across the country praised Ruth's measured but devastating response. Prestige Motors closed permanently just 2 weeks later. Bob Robinson lost his family's 40-year legacy, his reputation, and his livelihood in one afternoon of hatred. The building was eventually sold to a minority-owned automotive group that made customer respect and dignity their founding principle. Ruth Cardiff continued her work with Cardiff Capital, but with renewed purpose burning in her heart. She established a foundation dedicated to supporting minority-owned businesses and fighting discrimination in the marketplace. Her quiet influence became a powerful force for change across the Southeast. The story became a reminder that echoed across the nation. In America, respect and dignity should never be conditional on wealth, appearance, or the color of someone's skin. Ruth had proven that sometimes the most profound justice comes not from revenge, but from allowing people's own actions to reveal their true consequences. Bob Robinson learned the hardest lesson of his life, that prejudice doesn't just hurt the people you target, it destroys everything you've worked to build. And sometimes the person you're discriminating against holds your entire future in their hands. If this story gave you chills and made you believe in justice, smash that subscribe button right now and hit the notification bell, because we have more incredible stories of people getting exactly what they deserve. What would you have done in Ruth's position? Would you have shown Bob mercy? Or would you have let justice take its course? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because I want to know if you think Ruth made the right choice.